Hi, it's Liz, and welcome to another video that I made. So today, I tried to make myself look nice. This was a great impetus for me to take care of myself, take a shower, do my skincare routine. I did my lips and my brows real quick. I feel nice. Because I have not been taking care of myself very well. I'm not feeling well. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that, specifically how disability, invisible illnesses, and mental illnesses, etc., relate to like how they contrast with laziness. This is one of many topics that is often, I think, understandably really simplified in online discourse. On the one hand, you have a more kind of, I guess, mainstream attitude that isn't explicitly anti-disability or anti-mental illness or anything like that. It doesn't think it is, but it's this attitude that people who aren't constantly pushing themselves as hard as they can are lazy. And this is something that the social justice community, as it's sort of proliferated online in the last few years, has pushed back really hard against. And basically, I think that's a good thing, because for very, very, very many people who are labeled as lazy, there are underlying reasons for their being slow in doing things or for their inactivity or whatever, right? But laziness still exists, and people with disabilities and illnesses can still be lazy. So I think it's worthwhile trying to think about what exactly the differences are between suffering from, say, fatigue or depression or autistic burnout or any number of other things versus being lazy. So for starters, let's just talk about laziness. Because this is something that really this is something I think about, because on the one hand, I know that I can be lazy. So what does that mean? I think laziness is when you don't want to do what you know you should do, or what is expected of you, what is needed of you, what you really owe to other people. When you don't want to do your duty to another person, to society, maybe even to yourself, and so you don't. And maybe instead you do something that you do want to do. It's, I think, when you look away from and you choose not to even maybe think about things that are hard, and that's intellectual laziness, right? When we don't even want to think about things that are challenging for us, because we just don't want to, because it's not fun, because it's unpleasant, because it challenges maybe our biases, or it challenges our worldview. It's just painful in some way. So there's intellectual laziness, there's emotional laziness, not being just not being willing to do emotional work because it's not enjoyable, because it requires effort and you don't want to put in the effort. I think that's really what laziness comes down to. It's rejecting doing something just sheerly because it's not enjoyable. It's not sort of pleasurable for you. It doesn't give you instant gratification. So you don't do it. Then you do things that do give you instant gratification. And that's going to cause problems, obviously, for you and other people. And it's basically a bad thing, right? However, from the outside, I think those kinds of behaviors can look very similar to somebody who is trying to manage symptoms of a disorder, a disease, a condition, whatever, a disability, an illness, and is making thoughtful decisions about what's going to work for them. So something that I've experienced in my life over and over again is that I can, if I overextend myself even just a little bit, it can have really profound consequences. And those consequences aren't just that maybe I fail, which wouldn't be so bad. It sucks. But failure is not something that bothers me as much as it seems to bother some people. But the consequences are more than just failure, or more than just not being good at the thing or whatever. It's that I'll actually be set back significantly and have to spend days to months to years. I guess at most about a year, if I'm thinking about examples of this. I might have to spend a very long time just getting back to where I was before I overextended myself. And so that's taught me to be very careful. And I still do it sometimes. And I've done it recently. And sometimes you don't have a choice because there's just a lot to do. And it's more than you can handle. Sometimes a lot just comes at you and you don't get to say no to it. I guess that's kind of more what happened. I think I wasn't trying, but I did overextend myself recently, and that was my choice. I thought I could handle it, and I couldn't. So it's not a lesson I've 100% learned, but for that reason, I've been in my life very slow and cautious about taking on new things, even simple things like learning something new, watching a new TV show. Just really like anything that requires me to exert. Like, I'm just very aware of the things that cause me stress and take up and drain my mental energy. Because for me, a lot of this stuff comes down to the autism spectrum, and that's inextricably linked to bipolar disorder for me. So stressing myself out enough with respect to, stuff that drains me and stresses me because of being on the spectrum can translate into having a bipolar episode. And that's something that's happened. So, and all of that's connected to celiac as well. I just did a video about that. There's all these interconnections, but it's like a lot of layers of, trying to balance resting and also taking care of myself, and also, doing the things that I want to do in life. So I think I'm still learning to discern between legitimate rest and laziness. Um, and because I think on the surface, like I said, they can look really similar. Because sometimes rest for me is just letting myself do what I want to do, and not doing the stuff that's taxing for me. Um, Sometimes it's just doing nothing. um, you know, but to me, what I'm realizing is the sort of touchstone that I can tell whether I'm being lazy and avoidant or taking care of myself is, do I actually want to do the things? Right? So when it comes to my responsibilities, because when I'm really not doing well, typically I do actually want to do the things that I'm choosing not to do. I very much want to do them. In fact, I have to stop myself from doing them. I want them to be done. I want the satisfaction of having accomplished those things. But I know that if I'm doing poorly enough, it's going to be a poor use of my energy to do those things. So that's a balance that I have to figure out day to day. And I think that's something that a lot of people with just very broadly similar kinds of issues can relate to. It's not that we want to avoid our duties. It's that we've made the calculation that it's better for us to rest right now. That if we do those duties now, then there will be a much longer stretch of time that we won't be able to, that we might push ourselves into a crisis instead of just having a relatively short period of inactivity. So that's the difference, I think. I think it's desire, and I think it's worth, if you notice somebody who is, you might look at and think that they're being lazy or that they're not living up to their potential or something like that. You might consider why it is that they're not doing the things that they're not doing. And the answer is often complicated. What I've shown you here is only two possible orientations. When it comes to people who are deeply emotionally disordered, their relationships with taking proper care of themselves and fulfilling their social duties or whatever it is, might themselves be very tangled up and disordered. And that gets a lot more complicated, it seems like. And the issue for them might be really that they have a lot of emotional work to do, and they might have a really hard time getting started. They might not even really realize that that's the case. And so you find them drinking themselves into a stupor instead. And it might be genuinely because they don't know what else to do. Or it might be that they know what they need to do and they're avoiding it. I don't know. I think when it comes to other people, we need to be very, very careful about assigning intentions and blame. But we can check in with ourselves. Are we being lazy? Or are we taking care of ourselves? What do we really want? Do we want to do our best? Or do we want to just do what's easy because we're avoiding pain? On that note, I think I'm going to rest for a while. I'll see you later.